Hello, Joyce. Hi from Paris, and you
Hello.
are in Toronto.
I am. I am. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so happy to chat with you. Last time I saw Joyce, we did Beethoven 9 together with a stellar cast, including you, in Prague with the Prague Philharmonia for the opening of a new hall. And before that, we have worked together in many places, but not on the same piece. And I think the only other time we actually worked together was the Tucker Gala,
That's right.
where I believe we did the Manon duet with Michael Fabiano, and
Yes.
it was a lot of fun. And maybe we have worked on, I keep forgetting that kind of things. Is that it, Joyce, or have we done other things together?
I think that was it. But
Okay,
I think we kept bumping into each other in a
exactly.
variety of places. But that Tucker Gala was 6 years ago now.
Right, it feels like yesterday. So the Turkey Gala, for the people who are not familiar, we talked about the Turkey Gala, I think, in another of these conversations. It's really the big event in our industry where you have the best singers of the world, basically in New York, singing usually with the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra in a gala in honor of the recipient of a very prestigious prize, the Tucker Prize, in the honor of American tenor Tucker, Richard Tucker. And this is the occasion to really, I mean, gorge in amazing music for a few hours. And Joyce, you sung the duet of Manon so with Michael Fabiano, who was getting the big award that year. Joyce is born in Beirut, Lebanon, and then moved with her family to Ottawa,
Mhm.
and then studied music, I believe, in Ottawa. You are Lebanese and Canadian, and then you went to the Linman Young Artist program at the Met, very prestigious program. And you studied also with Bill Schumann.
Mhm.
You have a stellar career. You worked at the Met, you worked in Covent Garden, you worked all over the world as one of the leading soprano and a wonderful, wonderful artist. Um, you are Lebanese and Canadian. At what age did you move from Lebanon to Canada?
I was 6, and we were fortunate enough in that my mother was actually born in Lebanon, in Canada, to Lebanese parents. So we were able to, in the middle, this was 1982. I'm giving you my age now. In the middle of the war, when you do the math, we were able to leave this, war-struck Beirut, and so yeah, we moved to Ottawa, and we started over from zero with my parents.
That is terrific. Uh, did you at all um, start music when you were in Lebanon, or did you start later?
I didn't officially start until I was around 15, but let me tell you this. I have photos in my parents' house of myself at the age of 3 standing in the middle of a room singing to an audience of family. I loved singing and entertaining from a very, very young age. And it wasn't until I was 14 or 15 that I started taking lessons in Ottawa, singing lessons in Ottawa. But until then, I just sung in choirs and things like that at church. But that was it.
And what made you take singing lesson? What was the insight for that?
I had, I can't even begin to tell you the horrific stage fright that plagued me at the time. I mean, I loved singing, and at the time I was singing pop music. Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Celine Dion, of course. I was in Canada, right? And I was just belting all these songs in my parents' basement, and I sang all the time. And my parents, one day, they came home early when I didn't know they were there, and they caught me, and they discovered my voice.
Mm.
Most incredible stage fright. I couldn't even sing in front of my parents. So whenever they would ask me to sing, I'd have to go and hide in another
Oh
room
my God.
where they wouldn't see me. I'd kind of sing behind a wall. And then one day I got so sick and tired of that because I loved singing. And I thought, why can't I just get out of my own way? And I asked my mother to organize singing lessons for me. And so she did. And I started working with a woman by the name of Karen Spicer, who had studied voice at the University of Ottawa. And she took me under her wing and she taught me all about classical music. And she introduced me to opera. And she kind of put me on that path. And that's why I started with the official singing lessons. But at the time, I still thought I was going to be a pop singer.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so do you still have the same stage fright? Your parents are going to come in the room and you're going to be discovered as doing something you shouldn't be doing?
No, I got over that once my teacher, she was also choir director in a church. She invited me to come and sing a solo, and I sang Fools Rush In. That was my first ever song in front of an audience. And I describe it as ripping off a Band-Aid. I just got up there and I did it and from that moment on, I've been okay. I think I've done okay in terms of stage fright.
That's a wonderful story. You are Canadian, you are Lebanese, but you are still very connected to your home country. So a lot of events have happened lately um, following that horrible explosion in the harbor, but then the political unrest that is following all of this. And this is the result of years and years of, let's say, major issues in Lebanon. What's your position with all of this?
What I know is this. I know that the Lebanese people are wonderful, warm, generous, loving, giving, forgiving people. And they've been caught in this situation that they want no part of. And I feel that, as you said, this is a long time in the making. There was the revolution going on over the last few months, and then the financial crisis, and now this explosion. And it's just one thing after another for a people that certainly do not deserve it. They deserve a break. They deserve to just live their life. And it's amazing to me the kinds of things that we perhaps take for granted. Just having a cell phone, having a credit card, walking on the street. These are things that they think about all the time. Electricity, you know, um, there's a lot of things that need to be resolved, and a lot of work that needs to be done, and people need to roll up their sleeves. And what I'm finding is so beautiful in after this explosion is that it is the people of Lebanon, the inhabitants of Beirut, that are on the streets cleaning and picking up the glass. And I'm just so inspired and so moved by what they've done and what they've gone through that, as a Canadian, I grew up with the Lebanese culture at the front of my family life. We speak Lebanese at home. We eat Lebanese food. We still have all the same traditions. And so I never felt like I wasn't Lebanese, you know?
Right. So I wanted to ask you about this because all the Lebanese friend I know are actually outside of Lebanon and they have a double nationality. They are American, French, uh, American, a US citizen, or as I said, or Canadian or whatever. This connection with Lebanon is the strongest I have ever seen with any people who are immigrants in another country. To what do you attribute this?
I love that you said that because we all feel this way. We really, really do. Lebanon is it is such a great country. it is so naturally so beautiful. In one day, you can go to the mountains and you can ski, and then you can go to the beach, and because it's so small, you can do you can have so many experiences in nature. It is so beautiful. And the culture is amazing. The poetry, the music, the food, the spirit of the people who just want to live. So when you go to Lebanon and you feel like, oh, I'm in Lebanon, there should be all this disaster, that's not what you feel. You feel
Mm-hmm.
life, you feel music, you feel just this hunger for life and this extreme pride in our culture, and that never leaves us. And in
Mm-hmm.
fact, we miss it. I mean, I left when I was 6, and so you would think that it's very distant for me, but it doesn't feel that way at all to any of us.
Right. So, and a lot of these Lebanese friends, they want to give back to their country one way or the other. It's not only a feeling of belonging and being Lebanese, even though you are not in Lebanon, but it's also this feeling we need to give back to the people back home. So you have just launched an initiative that I find absolutely fascinating. You are giving singing lesson online. Can you elaborate on this? Can you tell us a little about that project?
Yes. So it started with I worked with one soprano who contacted me on Instagram, and we decided that I would start to give her lessons, and she's in Lebanon. And after my lesson with her, I realized how much there is a need for this in Lebanon. Uh, Not only right now, but there's been a need for a while, because what happens is there's a great desire for people in Lebanon, for young musicians to express themselves and to sing and to learn about singing. And they have schools. They actually have really nice university programs. But
Mm-hmm.
once they've done these programs and had their basic training, the question is, now what? Now what do I do? I'm in Lebanon. It's not like there's an opera house in every city, and it's not like opera is a major part of Lebanese culture. So there's a big question mark. Where do I go now? How do I have a career? How do I transition? And so I decided to start giving lessons. I put out a little video on Instagram, and I have received hundreds of requests for lessons that it took me some time to figure out how to have the proper
Filter.
administration to facilitate it. But so far so good. I've been working with some people. I've really, really loved it. I'm learning a lot, and I hope they're learning a lot, and it is my way of giving back. Speaking of giving back, this t-shirt is was designed by the fashion designer Zuhair Murad, who is in Lebanon, who also had his studio was completely
Destroyed.
destroyed, and he designed these T-shirts, and the proceeds go 100% to the Lebanese NGOs. So a lot of people are doing some really great things, which is
That is terrific. How do you find teaching online? Have you taught before? Have you taught online before?
No, I had only really taught in person, and there was a little bit of a learning curve and figuring out how to hear past the sometimes the but I've actually there's a lot that can be done online. It's been really
Right.
surprising. Of course, I'm not there to see everything and feel
And
and
feel.
demonstrate,
Yeah.
but there's a lot that can be done, and it's been kind of really eye-opening how much is available to us online and how much we can accomplish. I don't know if you find that you've been doing a lot online yourself.
Yeah, but not really teaching. And I think, as you said, I mean, in our case, if I were to teach a conductor really conducting technique, I mean, we can talk about scores online, of course.
Sure.
You would have to really imagine the body presence, the physical presence, the breathing, the emoting in the room. And so I guess that is a challenge. When I talk to a lot of your colleagues, the colleagues that were teaching online before, of course, it's business as usual. They have the codes already. These are with singers that they have seen in person, so they know how to read what's happening online. The ones that are suffering the most are the ones who do this for the first time online. And so this is really tricky, but this is part of our reality now, and it's part of we're trying to figure out ways to incorporate not only social media, not only digital, but anything that is happening online with the way we produce opera nowadays. And I think at one point it will come up to the way we write operas. We are going to maybe write operas that are going to work one day in virtual reality. Mm-hmm. And where you can be at home, but you can be in the opera house, in the Scala, in the Dallas Opera, in the Canadian Opera Company in Toronto, and you can be in the pit, you can be on the drums, or you could be on stage just with virtual reality. I really think this is happening, and if we find the right stories that work with that, the right music that works with that, I think the possibilities are very exciting. Of course, nothing can replace that presence from people to people, that resonance of the voice, the resonance of the voice. So let's go back to you. When did you, realize you could actually make a living out of this? And what was, you worked with Bill Schumann, for instance, who was a very strong teacher. And what was your first repertoire? Then was there any evolution? Were there any discoveries?
Oh, so many, and there continue to be discoveries. And right after I finished at the University of Ottawa, I went to AVA, the Academy of Vocal Arts in Philadelphia, and it was there that I really understood, or began to understand, what is required to have a successful operatic career and what the actual demands are. Mm-hmm. And at AVA, I sang Traviata, which is a role that I went on to sing many times, and Manon, Tatiana, and I learned my basic, repertoire there, and I learned how to learn there. Then when I went to the Young Artist program at the Met, that's when my bel canto world opened up. Mm-hmm. I worked my first 2 years with Maestro Levine, who taught me about Verdi and bel canto. He wanted me to sing Verdi and only Verdi. And I also worked with Ken Noda, and he introduced me to bel canto repertoire, and that opened up my whole bel canto world that I never even.
So what was your vision? What was your knowledge, or how did you feel about bel canto before being really introduced to bel canto professionally?
I just never thought that it was something that was in the cards for me. I never even considered it, because I grew up studying Mimi, Marguerite, Carmen, and Liu, and the full lyric repertoire, and never even imagined singing Pirata and Maria Stuarda. It wasn't until I went to the Met that Ken Noda said to me, you should be studying bel canto. And then sure enough, I was hired to do my first recording, which was Belisario with Opera Rara. And so my first true bel canto opera was recorded with Opera Rara, and it was like my second professional year.
So what are the challenges for you, for a singer, at least in the bel canto?
You mean technically?
Technically, artistically, dramatically?
Oh, that's a big question, Maestro, isn't it?
It is.
The challenges are that nothing, not one note, not 1 minute can be taken for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes from the first day of preparation until the last note you sing on the stage. And I know that after singing something like Maria Stuarda and Pirata, I'm very aware of what's happening in my body all the time during the production rehearsals and on stage. And so the idea for me has always been to keep my voice as brighter and as healthier, the healthiest it can be, while staying true to my color, which is darker, and some people are very confused by it. But I think for me, there's been a really big learning curve in the bel canto repertoire, because I had to find where the limit is and where it ends, where I can cross the line and then where it's safe to come back. That's in terms of range and dynamic and emotional. So there's always so many, it's like a big puzzle, so many parts moving, but I've learned so much from bel canto, and the bel canto repertoire has really prepared me for where I'm moving toward now.
Right. So I find it the same paradox in bel canto is that when you just look at the notes, you read the text, it's rather simple. It's rather even sometimes bare and pure. And you think, well, okay, well, I get it. I just went through Rite of Spring. I just went through the most complex, Szymanowski score or Stockhausen or Puccini, with sometimes a writing that, at least orchestrally, is very dense, very complex, with a lot of layers and things to unpack. With the bel canto, it's the opposite. The text is simple, but the idea is extremely complex. Right. The idea is very elaborate. The poetical source of the musical text is very precise. You need to identify it. You need to work. And the text, if you just have the literality of the text, doesn't fully give you that. No. And that makes your work, really harder. And you need to be as smart as the composer, because if you just do the text, you are not doing the music. And so that's asking an immense work from all the performers involved. But for you, you have sung Lucia. Have you sung Lucia?
I have not sung Lucia in full, no.
Right. So what is in bel canto today? What are the roles that you think are your roles in the bel canto?
One that I've done twice and I would like to repeat is Imogen in Pirata.
Right.
Maria Stuarda, as I've mentioned, I've done as well. And my next one, I'm adding Anna Bolena.
Wow.
In 2 years, and I'm working toward that. The one thing that I find is constant, and that I learned, whether it's Donizetti or Bellini, that the emotion lives inside the vowel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the vowel is what carries the emotion forward. And so even if, as you say, the text is fairly simple and, we can kind of take it for granted, it's very complex internally. And that's what I put at the front of a role when I study it, especially in bel canto, because it's deceptively simple. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I went off on a tangent. You were asking me about roles, but
no,
my mind is going.
So let's go back to roles, Pearl, and repertoire. You are still singing. I guess you could still sing Michaela, Manon, that kind of. How do you jungle from one rep to the other?
I sing everything the same.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's very simplified, but I sing everything.
You sing everything with the same integrity, the same technique, the same style, the same care, but it never sounds the same.
Right, right. The goal is to, I sing everything with the bel canto technique. I sing everything the way that the way that my instrument works best.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, different styles require different things. In Puccini, you can lean into the music a little bit more, and you have to find really a lot of depth physically and emotionally. In bel canto is a bit more. There's a bit more of of space. So you know, every role is different, of
Mm-hmm.
course. But there's always the truth. The truth is found in the bel canto technique for me.
Right. And so from Traviata to Manon or to Michaela and Maria Stuart, I mean, does the range matter a lot to you? Are you more comfortable shifting a little lower than you used to? How do you metabolize those issues, which is a common question for most singers?
Yeah, I actually I enjoy my lower middle register.
Mm-hmm.
It was a time where I started out as I mean, I always called myself a soprano, but I sang Carmen, I sang Dorabella. And I think a lot of Middle Eastern voices have this quality in their voices where the middle is a bit more juicy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I like my middle. Um, and it feels very safe for me. I always try to keep a connection to my chest voice. Now, at the early on when I first started singing bel canto, I thought that I had to go, and I kind of for a while was singing in a little bit of a lifted place, and I was thinking very, very high, and I'm now coming back to that depth, and from that depth has come more repertoire. Now I'm comfortable to make my first Tosca. The most important thing for me in a season is you know, sometimes we don't have much to a lot of people's surprise. Singers aren't always having the luxury of designing what their season looks like. So you can have Michaela one day and then Tosca 2 months later, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
how do you
And in
negotiate
very
that?
important houses, and you cannot say no to that house for Michaela, and you cannot say no to Tosca, to the other house. Yes.
Exactly. And so rehearsal periods are very important. But for me, I try to keep my range going all the time. So even if I'm
Mm-hmm.
singing Michaela or if I'm singing Liu, I still vocalize up to high D that is required for Pirata or Stuarda. So that
Mm-hmm.
my instrument is always elastic all the time, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what.
That is terrific. You are working all over the world, uh, but our industry is mostly in the States and in Europe. Um, do you enjoy more working in Europe or in the US, or what do you take as positive in each places, or and what is really sometimes difficult for you in any of these places?
No, I'm not really sure how to answer that because every place is different, and
Mm,
so much of our experiences as traveling musicians has to do with our artistic team at that moment.
hmm
Um,
That's a
and
very good answer. Mm,
I find that, you know, my heart is happy when I'm singing music that I love with people that I enjoy singing with.
hmm
Now, I've had great experiences in London. I've sung in London a lot. I love London. I love Amsterdam. That's where I would live. That would be my European city where to live.
Uh-huh.
And of course, I have a great musical home here in Toronto at the Canadian Opera Company. So it's nice to be home. I don't really have an answer for you other than I'm I'm very good being by myself. I know a lot of singers have really hard time being lonely on the road. If I'm happy internally, I'm happy anywhere. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Um, but sometimes you also nowadays you can connect with your loved ones through technology, and now we connect almost too much for this. So I love your answer. It's actually a very good answer. And this is a question I've asked a lot to your colleagues. And you're the first one to say this, but this is kind of obvious. It should be the first answer. Let me push a little. Then how do you feel when you have to rehearse 2 months for a production where the action is actually not literally, in Rome at the Palazzo Farnese, if it's Tosca, but you are either on the moon or in Guatemala in the gutters. And you have a stage director who has been brilliant in all the movies he has done, but it's his first opera, and he has the libretto in front of him and he cannot read the music.
What do I do then?
Mm-hmm.
How do I keep sane?
How do you react?
Well, the music is our savior in moments like that, I find. And I had a really great acting teacher, Stephen Wadsworth. Have you worked?
Oh yes, Stephen is wonderful. Yeah.
So we worked together when I was a young artist at the Met, and it was he who really helped me solidify my acting technique. And he gave me, he teaches a very specific method which works with, you create one sentence about your character and about that one scene, and you place your experience in that sentence. I'm saying it very basically.
Your experience, meaning your personal experience.
You
right.
As a person.
As a performer. Yeah, mm-hmm. As a person. Yeah.
Yeah, I take my own personal human experience and I'm able to kind of superimpose it on the character, so that my mental imagery and my emotional world is matching the character that is, a monkey on the moon, whatever it may be, but there's truth of emotion, and that's how I connect the two, and that's mm-hmm. how I perform for the audience. So that's mm-hmm. one way in dramatically, and I do that a lot. Also, when it's a traditional production that feels comfortable. But then there's also the music, as I said, which the music is the savior. There are times where you just have to mind your own business and go in and do your job and sing the music as best that you can do and control what you can control. That's the biggest mm-hmm. one. Control what we can control.
Right. But are you more of a traditionalist? I mean, do you or can you be adventurous with staging? Do you like proposals that are off the beaten path if they are really substantiated, if there is a real study behind and you are kind of intellectually convinced, or you really are sticking to the literality of the piece? No,
I'm not by any means a purist. I like adventure. I like doing things that are a bit risque. My favorite production of Traviata out of the 13 that I've done is the Willy Decker production. Mm-hmm. And I did that in Amsterdam, and I felt so free because I was dismissed from the traditions. I was able to just work in a psychological way on the opera. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really interesting. I'm perfectly open to things that are done in a different way, as long as they adhere to the text. That's as long as mm-hmm. it's still married to what I'm saying and there's meaning to what I'm saying.
Right. But the text, even the text, I mean, in straight theater, if you do King Lear, you can transpose King Lear, to any kind of political situation. And the audience is going to totally understand that. So even when you say it connects to the text, it could have many different meanings the way it connects to the text, right. And it can literally connect to the text, or it can connect to the spirit of the text, or it can connect very deeply to the situation, the dramatic tension between the music and the libretto in a very, very large understanding of it, but certainly not in the literality of it. And
Right.
I personally feel that sometimes, you have stage directors that are extremely literal and traditional and get the piece wonderfully, but they are not able to produce that little spark that makes it alive, that makes it relevant, that makes it new for the audience and for the performers. And you can have a director that is very irreverentious, sometimes even not saying a few things, but then gets to something that is so vibrant that the music shines, and somehow that incredible, impossible connection between the scenery, the words, the situation, the mental state of an audience, politically, culturally, socially, and the music and what's happening in the orchestra, they connect beautifully.
Yeah. And how do we do that? What causes that perfect?
Well, I think it's a point of view, having a strong point of view, and understanding the the way the various lines interact independently of their individual meaning. You need to understand their charge and when they meet and when they conflict and how they work with each other or against each other. And when I say different line, again, it's the music, the libretto, the words, and also what the libretto is not saying because it had to fight censorship and all of those elements. I mean, this is tricky, which goes to how do you prepare yourself for a role? Do you start at the piano? Do you listen to thousands of recordings? What's your path to prepare a role?
Generally, it varies on the role and of course my schedule. But I start with the text. I read through the text, and then I listen to recordings to get a really broad idea. But I'm the kind of person that if I listen too much, it's my body and my ear absorbs everything. So I'm so sensitive to that. I think many of us are actually
Right.
and so I listen a little bit and then I have to absolutely stop listening because then you're not going to get my interpretation.
Right. So I have Tchaikovsky 6. I used to listen a lot to Tchaikovsky 6 on an LP, and that when I was a kid, and that LP had a scratch. So at one point in the score, blam, blam, always came back to the same place. Whenever I conduct the piece, I'm expecting the bassoon to go back to the other place. So, I mean, whenever I rehearse the piece, I just forget, just. So yes, you're right. You can get totally. It gets in your system and it can handicap you. Although I find that we are taught don't get influenced too much by recording. Actually, for me, they help me understand what my interpretation is going to be because you see so many different paths, so many different solutions to a problem, or all of a sudden you see a problem where you didn't know there was a problem, that it helps me formulate my own interpretation and it helps me think more freely. But it takes time. And if you adhere to one recording you absolutely love, then you're never going to be as good as that recording. And every Tosca, you okay, I know what Callas is doing that bar, including the wrong rhythm she's doing, but just please forget about this. Yeah. So what? So you work on the text first. You listen to recordings. Then how do you put it in your voice?
Then I study the music without singing it for as long as possible, so that I'm not putting it in my throat without absolutely knowing what's on the page. Mm-hmm. And that is something that, with having the luxury of time, is really great. To slow it down and take as much time as I can. Sometimes I had one season where I had 7 new roles in one season, and I am never doing that again.
Right.
But I need to know the music before I sing it. And in fact, that was one of the things we were taught at AVA. We were taught to spend 1 hour per page.
Makes
After you've
sense.
spent 1 hour per page, you know that page.
Right, right. Makes
Right?
total sense. And don't learn with the voice. Learn with the brain first. Yeah.
Right.
And then the voice is going to memorize for you a different thing, and it's going to be ready to memorize better because the
Correctly.
brain is ready.
Exactly.
Dan, do you play enough piano to just figure out what's going on around
I
you?
play enough to know my notes and to play some chords, but no, my
Right.
piano is
No,
not
but that's enough.
not at all where it should be. I maybe that should be my next COVID project. I should
Yeah.
improve my.
Good luck. I vote for shorter COVID, and you learn the piano anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then do you go to a coach? Do you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. I've been working for many years since AVA with my wonderful friend and coach Laurent Philippe.
Of course. Yeah.
And he's helped me prepare most of my roles, and in fact, he's on the road with me quite a bit in normal life. I've also been working with Kamal Khan and Tony Manoli, and I have a few that I really enjoy working with that understand me and my mentality and understand my voice, and it's I think yeah, it's important.
Right. And then do you have, for instance, a Bill Schumann check on you? Do you call him when there is all of a sudden, something you can't figure out vocally, or you feel you're doing something wrong, but you cannot put your finger on it? What do
I
you do?
haven't worked with Bill in a long time, but what Bill has taught me stays with me, of course. In recent years, I've been working with Julia Faulkner in Chicago, and I've also been working with Neil Shikoff, the wonderful tenor that we all know and love very much. And so it's a combination of my coaches and Julia and Neil. And I ask questions. I send clips quite a bit.
But so these are, these are. I don't know Julia personally, but I know Neil, I know Bill, I know Philippe, I know Tony Manoli, you mentioned. These are all incredible artists, pedagogues, and so on. But Bill and Neil are very intense personalities, and probably they have a sense of ownership on their student and so on. What do you do if Neil tells you go right and Bill tells you go left? Or does that ever happen?
No, no, because I haven't worked with Bill in a long time.
Okay.
So mainly it's right now it's with Neil and my coaches and Julia as often as I can see her. She's in Chicago.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, no matter who I'm working with, I'm the boss of myself.
Right.
And okay. I know what I'm doing. I'm the only one that can feel it. And I'm the one that knows when it's a true, good, honest sound. And I know when it's not. And sometimes you have this option A and you have option B, and they're both good. And it comes down to, well, which color do I prefer? What does the character want to say at that moment? Does this color suit it or does that color suit it? So that's how I decide.
Right. So Neil was an extraordinary tenor, an unbelievable performer, and he was able to kind of use the vocal situation, including the vocal difficulties, for dramatic purpose. I think he was one of those incredibly dramatic singers where you could not know where the emotion was coming from. It was the whole package, but he's a tenor, definitely. So how is it to work with a tenor? And Bill, I suppose, was a tenor. I don't know how much singing there was in Bill himself. Sorry, Bill, if you're listening. But does that affect the way you work with them? And next question, do you, now that you're teaching, do is it easier for you to teach to a soprano, or can you teach a bass or a tenor?
It absolutely is easier for me to teach a soprano, of course, because I can demonstrate, and because
Right.
I can feel, you know, the registers and the space that's required, and I know that a B flat for a soprano is a strange note, you know. So yes, naturally for me, it makes sense. Um, but then the principles of singing are the same for all
Right.
voices, right? You know, were you asking me about Neil?
But Bill and Neil, I mean, how do you feel if a tenor, you know, is explaining you how to sing, and is it easier if it's Julia, for instance, for some
Well,
things?
yeah, Julia when she demonstrates, I can immediately feel and hear what she's doing
Right.
with resonance and with space, and so and we're at the same pitch, so there is more directness. But I will tell
Hmm.
you, when I work with Neil and he demonstrates, which he does, and it's fabulous and it's very intense, as you
It's
say,
impressive, yeah.
very impressive. I can also still feel it, even though it's not in my register. But I can. He's so good at explaining his viewpoint and describing what he wants me to do that I can understand it. You know, he can demonstrate. You know, he's doing it
Right.
in his range, but I can match it too. And the intensity that he brings to the lessons, very very. It's
So
charged.
does he come to your performances too?
You know, he hasn't been to a performance because when I've worked with him, it's when I've been in New York, and I would schedule a lesson for him then in between my gigs. It hasn't happened yet that he's been at a job with me.
Right. So do you like to have family members, friends come to your performances? How does that affect your performance positively or
It
negatively?
does. It does positively because, you know, as you know, it's we give so much of ourselves on stage, and at the end of the day, it's a bit sad when we have this great night and it's so successful, and then we go home to our little hotel rooms by
Yeah.
ourselves. It's very difficult, even though we get used to it, and you know, we're not crying
Well,
or
it's even more difficult when we are not happy with the performance,
right.
you know, and you get these wonderful compliments backstage, and your dressing room is full for a few minutes, and then you finish your dress and you go out of your dressing room and everybody's gone and the light is almost dark and you go back to your hotel,
Hmm.
and that's tough,
It is
and
very
you don't even want to explain to anybody how you feel about it.
right.
And I think if you are a good performer, you know, a lot of performances you think we could have done better,
Sure.
and then the next morning you can say, you know, it's, well, that's what I can fix about it, or really there's nothing I could have done, and next time it's just bad luck, it's just going to work.
Mhm.
um, but that solitude is there. So yeah, I mean, if you have someone that you love and that you know loves you with you, that's better. And this is very 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 hard in our careers. On the other hand, you said earlier you like to be alone too.
I do. I do. I really
So what do you do if you have, you know, you have your performance, you that's not a year where you have 7 roles to learn. You have a performance on Monday, the next one is on Saturday evening, and you're stuck in Milano or Rome. What do you do?
I walk a lot, I read, I meditate, I think. I have it, and I've said this before, and I feel like it's must be so boring for people to hear me say this over and over, but I have a very vivid inner life
Okay.
in here, and I'm never bored. I'm
So
never bored.
let's what's happening in that inner life? So what when you say inner life, what do you mean?
I don't know. It's very hard to explain. I'm always thinking about something and
Right.
and feeling something, and even when I'm not, you know, this that state that we get to, that we try to get to when we meditate, and it's just like nothingness.
Hmm.
I can reach that point very quickly and
Hmm.
very easily. So I can just be by myself all day, just completely zen and at peace, and I'm not bored. I don't know why. It's just the way that I am.
Right, but I think reaching that, I totally understand what you say, and I didn't know you had said this thing before, but you need to be careful the way you say it, obviously,
Hmm.
because it can sound a little off. But I absolutely understand what you're saying, and in a way, that ability to meditate very quickly is maybe also a consequence of being all the time alone.
True.
It's the other way around. It's because you have been all the time alone, but you want to be alive, but at the same time you don't want to stress too much. You have this ability to be in a state that is comparable to a state of meditation.
Never
uh,
thought of it that way, but you're right. That's
yeah,
interesting.
and it can be
Yeah.
beautiful when you are alone and you meditate, or you are thinking, or you are floating. What kind of roles are you dreaming of? What is the role you have not done yet that you want to sing in 5, 10 years, or 2 months?
Um, well, my next one is Tosca. I'm hoping that it happens at in May, Opéra de Lille.
Uh-huh.
I hope it happens. Not sure what's going on there, but
Well,
that
May, you can still have hopes. May, yeah,
I hope so. I hope so.
right.
So Tosca, as I said, Anna Bolena. In 5 years, maybe Norma. I'd like to try Norma. See how
I
my
can
voice.
see you. I can totally see you in Norma.
I think
I
it's
think
it's a
I think
logical
it would put everything together.
together.
What you say about the bel canto passion you have, and the fact you came from other repertoire, the darkness of the voice, and all those elements, and the dramatic intensity that's yours. I can see you would be. I mean,
Yeah.
Norma is something. I did it. Yes, I did it with June Anderson, and it was, let's say, not necessarily at the beginning of her career.
Hmm.
And I mean, vocally, she had it was an extraordinary performance. She had to work a lot. But she made a good case for singing it, even though you are not in full possession um, of maybe all the required vocal fullness. And so there are several. My point is that there are probably several ways to sing that role,
Sure.
and so you don't need necessarily to be ready like Montserrat Caballé or Callas and have that kind of volume or
Hmm.
command of an immense legato to sing Norma.
Hmm.
Um, this is a lot of Italian, French repertoire. Is there anything German, Czech, Russian?
There has been no German. It hasn't really entered my path
Uh-huh.
somehow.
Throat.
Or path, throat, or industry
Yeah,
wise.
yeah.
Um, but Czech, I've sung Rusalka a few
Uh-huh.
times, and I've sung, as I said, Tatiana in Eugene Onegin, and that's really the extent of it. The rest has been Italian and French.
Wow.
That's just how
And
it happened.
and so, being Lebanese, you speak French. We speak French together sometimes. Um, does the knowledge of French, has that affected you say you sing everything bel canto, you sing everything with that technique. Do you sing you Michaela also with a bel canto technique,
Yeah.
or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything. Just spin, spin the air, legato, 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 space, spin, space, spin, everything. And there's been a really big learning curve for me, technically though.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my voice. My voice was always. I think we've talked about this in previous times, but my voice has been a bit of a mystery for many people because it's unusual. And so I've had so many opinions about my voice and about what repertoire to sing. And so I went this way, and then I went that way, and then I went back that way. And I find that things are now beginning to settle in terms of technique and in the color of my voice and what works best for me. And that's dictating the repertoire in a more clean clean way now, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense, and you have a beautiful voice, and you have one of those voices that gets more and more together with time.
Yeah.
And you know, I kind of think of this book of Lotte Lehmann on singing, and one of her point is that you can, in a way, choose your voice too. And you have to find your voice, but you can also choose your voice. And I think you have done both. You know, you're finding your voice and you are choosing your voice, and it comes from the offers you get. It also comes from the kind of drive you have into getting deeper and deeper into your artistry, and you are really wonderful for this. So thank you for your time, Joyce. And thank you for what you're doing for being for Lebanon, and being such a graceful and powerful ambassador for your country. And I can't wait to make music with you.
I can't wait.
Maybe in bel canto, maybe not in bel canto, but let's hope it's going to be soon enough.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. Lots of love.